Hello, everyone. My name is David Vallejo, and I'm the Vice President and Global Head of Digital Business Planning Solution Management at SAP. Today, we're going to cover our strategy, how to better withstand disruptions with Agile synchronized planning. So as part of our overall digital supply chain strategy, we're looking at all the aspects from designing products, manufacturing, logistics and warehouse management, operating all the assets that are required across the entire supply chain. So we call this the design to operate. And one of the critical aspects here is synchronizing these from a planning perspective. So we call this synchronized planning. So this stands next to the important strategy aspects around Industry 4.0, the connectivity with our business network, as well as the overarching principle of driving a sustainable supply chain. So here we're going to focus on synchronized planning. And the solution that stands in the center of this is our cloud-based solution, SAP Integrated Business Planning. And there are certain paradigms as part of our strategy that I want to highlight that have also been incorporated as part of our innovation roadmap. One of the important highlights here is the companies become more value chain oriented. So abandoning the more traditional segmentation around product hierarchies, customer hierarchies, location and regional hierarchies, and going really more towards the contribution of value, contribution of service, looking at my supply chain holistically, also from a life cycle of the products, from an overall portfolio perspective. So it's a lot more fluid in nature and less rigid from a one-time setup. So this is something that also has technology supporting that from a segmentation standpoint. The other aspect is the aspect of resiliency. So companies, of course, across different industries in the last 12 months have learned that events and disruptions can happen essentially overnight. And the ones that are better prepared are the ones that can better and more profitably react to these disruptions. So resiliency means that we can prepare ahead of time using what-if scenarios, abandoning the traditional concept of getting everything more accurate from a forecasting standpoint, but also being prepared for variability, making variability the objective function. So this is something that we, for example, have done for a long time around inventory optimization, where we look at the variability of the demand and the variability of supply, really mandating how much inventory do I need to keep. And we see this principle of resiliency going through across all of the dimension of demand and supply management. The other aspect is being more touchless. So when we have the value chain oriented principles where I am in the life cycle, how predictable is my demand, I can now incorporate that into getting some of my portfolio more automated and touchless from a demand perspective, looking at demand patterns, and being able to translate that into a supply chain, a supply plan that moves the goods essentially through the supply chain in a more automated way. Getting the human beings out of the equation to move the data, but more into a position to make decisions based on exceptions. That requires also the aspect of more real-time. Real-time integration is part of our roadmap where we get into real-time integration into the enterprise core and looking at a huge amount of focus on the freshness of the data that comes from all of these different dimensions. It also requires the customer centricity. So the more real-time intimacy with the end customer. And for some industries, that means the customer of the customer. So getting these feeds from a customer perspective incorporated into my supply chain as its own dimension is something that we consider very, very important. So more and more companies also realize now, of course, that they have to rely on trading partners and that these relationships from a planning standpoint, if they are digitized, you are a lot less surprised about your supply chain being disrupted. So here we look at a trading partner collaboration leveraging the business network. So collaborating on the dimension of exchanging forecast information, manufacturing plans, inventory positions, on order positions, so that I know ahead of time if there is a problem that may arise around my upstream trading partner network. And there are a lot of very exciting innovations that we're bringing forward to support these principles. So one is the intelligent visibility, bringing in the data from my real-time supply chain into an exception-based framework. And so we're looking at logistics exceptions. If shipments are being late in my inbound supply chain, then I'm being able to translate that into the impact to my plan from a revenue and from a service perspective. So now I can actually sort these exceptions using machine learning for their relevancy. Where do I need to focus on first? In a lot of supply chain exceptions happen every day, but where do I really need to focus my attention on? And the other very exciting innovation is around the planner's workspace, bringing all of these different dimensions together in one cohesive user experience. So where traditionally planners have to research the information to realize where is an outlier, where is an exception. Now, this exception requires further research to see who is involved, who can help me with the solution. So oftentimes planners spend a lot of time assembling the data around that one context of making a decision. So what we are doing with the planner's workspace is bringing all of these data elements together so that I see the exception that requires attention. I see the entire context, for example, around my deployment plan, about my production plan, and then being able from the same user experience, the same screen, being able to collaborate with the stakeholders that are involved with this, and also being able to execute a decision once I made it. So I think this will be game-changing in the way also we enable a new planner to come about, to look at the value chain a lot more holistically. Now, a lot of this leverages modern capabilities around machine learning. Machine learning can help us understanding patterns around a vast majority of data. So one exciting innovation that we're bringing forward this year is around understanding patterns in master data with products with all these different attributes, and understanding where are outliers, where are things potentially not clean. And as we hear from a lot of supply chain planning practitioners, inbound master data oftentimes creates a lot of noise and creates a lot of effort to keeping that clean. So I'm very excited to incorporate that into our integrated business planning environment. And then also further innovations around interactive planning. This notion of just real-time integration, also following that up with an interactive way to incorporate decisions and creating scenarios in an ad hoc fashion, and being able to execute the decision from the scenario in a much more real-time way. Real-time meaning that when something happens on event, on demand, I can recreate a plan and see the impact and being able to execute it. Now, this is also followed up with the aspect of collaborative enterprise planning, where I'm looking at the community of finance, for example, that look at their own finance plan. They're focusing on revenue, on budgets, on cash, and looking at this also from an account perspective. And having that community, having a fruitful collaboration, technology supported with supply chain, is what we call collaborative enterprise planning. And we're looking here also at a more real-time integration between our SAP Analytics Cloud as well as integrated business planning solution, so that these decisions are not made in isolation from each other, but made collaboratively. Now, these all of these innovations require a cohesive view across the supply chain, and we call this the digital twin of the supply chain. And this will become a huge focus area, that we look at everything being essentially fluid around my resources, around my demand and market, and that digital representation can help me make more confident decisions, so it's not based on an assumption. Now, bringing this all together in a picture says more than 1,000 words, is this planner's workspace, bringing all of these different dimensions around my finance planning, my product design into one environment. I also want to speak about assets and MRO, which is maintenance, repair, and overhaul, where a lot of asset-intensive industries are looking at also their service parts, and which are just as important as the ultimate output products. And here we can also leverage our integrated business planning solution to go hand in hand with our extended service parts planning to essentially cater for that industry, so that we stage the right amount of inventory and create a forecasting for these service parts as well. Now, manufacturing is an innovation that we started already last year with our interoperability between integrated business planning and production planning and detailed scheduling. So now that we're able to plan all the way from strategy, tactics, and operation down to machine level scheduling, provides for this end-to-end synchronization across the supply chain. And our strategy here is to also provide this independent from the backend, so that production planning and detailed scheduling can be deployed standalone, integrated with IBP for customers that look at this as a system of differentiation to make decisions in a very quick way, and also implement with a low total cost of ownership. Transportation is a dimension where we focus on interoperability with the logistics business network, and that goes into two directions. One is the visibility into all of the logistics events, track and trace, understanding where an event happened that requires my attention, and then also vice versa to create a transport load plan, for example. And that makes it also sort of intuitive that all of this requires a collaboration with trading partners. So we're leveraging the business network, SAP Business Network, to be natively integrated with my integrated business planning environment, so that any decisions that I'm making is rooted in the reality, in the digital collaboration with my trading partners. So I hope with that, I gave you a good view of our overall strategy and all the exciting innovations that we're putting forward. This is a hugely important investment area for SAP, and we're seeing a lot of companies around the world adopting the solution and helping us also innovating across all of these dimensions and helping them ultimately attain better business outcomes. And again, thank you very much for attending this session, and I hope you have a great day.